Somewhere between black and white, there is that shade of gray. I'm Mark Gray, and this is the gray area. We welcome you to today's edition of the gray area. I'm Mark Gray. Imagine having the best job in the world, something that you're truly passionate about, and then waking up one morning and just feeling burnt out. The passion is gone. The drive, not quite where it needs to be to push through it, and you're facing a pandemic. Such was the case for today's guest, a 15-year veteran of the D.C. public school system. Teresa Lasley found herself in that second position for the second time in a 15-year career. And the turnover in D.C. is mind-boggling. So she found her inspiration to try to help keep talented people in the game of teaching. And Teresa joins us right now after spending a day trying to make sure that her peers were literally fit. And Teresa, thanks for taking the time to join us. This is about the acronym FIT. So tell people what getting fit for your career as a teacher is all about.
So as a teacher leader in a classroom, it is imperative that our instruction is fit. And by fit, we mean focused, intentional, and tailored so that everyone, student and teacher, are reaching their very max potential. And that is part of our mission and goal at Instructional Gym, is to ensure that we are equipped and resourced and prepared to be our very best version of self.
How'd you come up with the instructional gym concept? I mean, it's really interesting. It sounds like you're going to break out like yoga mats and exercise balls, but it's really about what's going on between the ears and helping to increase the energy flow for people who are in the midst of a profession right now that it may seem extreme to say under attack, but you really don't have what you need in order to perform at an optimum level.
As you said earlier, a lot of this vision came out of my own experiences, and that along with that, the conversations I would have with my colleagues, and realizing that we need to really zero in on working out our instruction, and not even just in a sense of content and pedagogical practices, but also just working out. The boundaries need to be set so that we can prevail and be successful in classroom spaces that ultimately will impact student achievement. Instructional gym, the title in itself is just that. We're in a gym collectively working to ensure that we are all feeling in a safe space, that we are nurturing our own selves so that, again, we can thrive in the classroom and students can do just that, excel from the time you have with them and thereafter. Our work is generational. We are able to impact generations of families, and the idea around burnout really is something beyond the teacher, is something that's experienced in a lot of professions, but specifically for teachers, because of our impact socially and economically on the communities that we serve. It is now a community issue that needs to be addressed. So I intend to be a part of the answer, really pushing forward the needs of teachers, all things teachers, to ensure that the work that we do is impactful and that it resonates from this time on forward.
In DC, particularly, it's the highest rate of teaching turnover in the United States statistically. You guys face a number of different challenges, despite the fact that you have one of the most competitive wage scales in certainly the DMV region. Can you talk about the stressors that are leading to burnout and how teachers and even administrators may need to keep aware for what's going on inside them that they may not even recognize?
Sure thing. So, we have one of the most competitive salaries, but we're also living in an area in the nation that is really expensive. So despite the salary levels in DC, we're really maintaining, lifestyles just to stay afloat in a way. As far as signs of burnout, a lot of things that bring burnout on is us constantly being vessels that pour out to the community of students we serve and not having the resources that replenish us, not prioritizing and recalibrating. A lot of the pressures of standardized testing really come into play, which kind of in some ways trump just true instruction and learning. We find the pressures of test scores that really change the dynamics of instruction in a way that we are constantly comparing data, not necessarily always for student growth, but really trying to hit numbers and marks for potentially funding for schools. So there's a lot of pressure in that regard. You'll see that with the turnover for teachers, there's turnover in administration as well. So the vision is not always clear for teachers, and how my personal values align to the vision is a really, really important piece of how I govern and operate in a space that I spend a good portion of my day, right? We go in, we clock in prior to 8 a.m. and I very well could be at school close to 7 p.m. So again, the time balance and management of work-life balance is another thing that may cause burnout. We take on traumas, our own personal traumas of things we're dealing with, and that of students, and we are serving in multiple capacities to nurture children. So I'm not only your English teacher, but I'm your mentor, I'm your advisor. I step in sometimes after hours, weekends, to ensure that you are safe and well, that you are in a position to receive instruction, because that's a whole nother component, that your social and emotional competency as a student is that you're well and able to do so. So very, very clearly, the things I've named, from transitions, changing in admin and vision, taking on traumas, not having boundaries, really leads to levels of stress that go beyond just teaching, but impact us overall as people. And what's really, really important for us to note is that we're putting ourselves before children. So how we show up is important. Not just what we know, but our everyday interactions could very well be the spark for a scholar to move forward, or something discouraging for them to detach themselves from learning. So I would say definitely those are clear indicators that lead to burnout, and things that we have to combat on a larger scale. We must pull resources into those areas to ensure teachers are, again, ready to do the work and be their very best.
Now, when I was talking to you for the article, you talked about reconnecting teachers to their why they actually got into the business. A two-part question. How does the work-life balance affect that why? Because I know a lot of people will have an opportunity. Let's say, I don't know, you spoke of a colleague who left the profession altogether when he became a father. He was a very talented teacher. Sure. Not exactly in the best interest of the community to lose somebody like that, but he made the choice, work life, well, I'm taking home life and I'll redefine myself. Reconnecting with your why, and then that impact on the school system. They seem to be hand in hand in terms of troubling reasons for the lack of retention, huh?
It's definitely a noted concern that retention is an area of focus. We just have not really developed enough solutions that would combat it, which is the work of instructional gym. Like, how do we retain the most qualified, committed, and passionate people in a classroom? And a lot of understanding your why is that the work that we do sometimes requires sacrifice, and teacher leaders and educators leave the profession because the sacrifice weighs too heavy for them to way too heavy for them to show up in other areas of life in the way that they have chosen to show up. So that's a lot of what we see when we have this turnover rate of teachers in the city specifically, because we have one, as you said earlier, the highest numbers in the nation, but just across the nation itself. Turnover is a concern, noted, but we haven't resourced it enough to solve it. So connecting to your why is just that. Like, why did I become a teacher? What was the passion, or what imprint did I intend to leave? And what is now muddled that I am now considering leaving the profession in its entirety, that I've been able to detach in a way that I've justified that this may not be the work, my life work that I need to be doing right now in life. And I've seen it happen over and over again. And I think it's really, really important for us to not only develop new teacher programs, but also programs that really nurture that piece for teacher leaders in the school buildings. We won't have the need for so much new teacher work if we were pouring into all teachers in a way to sustain them in the space.
You came into the 2019-2020 school year feeling signs of burnout. Then the pandemic hits, and suddenly there's relief to a lesser extent. Talk about your walk during the pandemic, going into the end of last year, and now as we approach a new school year. How you feeling about the way that the upcoming year is approaching compared to how the way the end of last year was?
So I think, it was so many unknowns in our entering of the pandemic. And for me, going virtual in my instruction really quieted things. The instruction that I was able to develop for my students was much more just about relevant topics, teaching and learning, and the pressure of assessments are no longer present. There was no more standardized assessments that were measures, but really just back to the basics of teaching curriculum that I developed, that I found relevant to the times that we were in, as well as the students that I was serving. So that alone really took off a large weight for the school year. I came into the school year with a lot of demands on me as both an instructional specialist and teacher, and the pandemic put me in a quiet place to really just focus on working hand in hand with teachers to create spaces for students to learn, and I can tailor the curriculum to the times that we were teaching in, and really for it to be just about instruction, discourse, and learning. What I think is different about approaching this year is that our attempt to get back to what we would deem as normal starts to add some additional pressures. We come into a new school year under the guise that we are in some way going to simulate what previously instruction looked like. And I think that may be faulty in a way to approach this school year. Despite us coming back, I think it's really, really important to understand that we are still in the midst of a pandemic, and that did not yet go away. And we may have had more time with it and figured out some things, but a lot of unknowns still exist. We still don't have things in place, which is why we can't return to a school building. So to attempt to operate business as normal could be to our detriment in really like building community with students, and also adding again more deliverables and pressures for teachers that are completely separate from teaching and students learning.
Truly a great concept, Teresa. Congratulations, and we look forward to having you back sometime real soon. Teresa Lasley with that FIT Instructional Program for teachers, hoping to make life a little bit easier for those who have the lives of our babies in their hands. That's going to close the book on this edition of The Gray Area. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us. As always, you can find me all over the place in cyberspace at The Sports Groove 24/7, 365 on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And by all means, remember, check out the Sports Groove podcast. That's right, daily on HSRN and HSRN's mobile app. So to find us, we're streaming at hsrn.com. And as always, make sure to give somebody you love a hug tonight. You may not get a chance to do it tomorrow. And by all means, remember, proper social distancing. Mask up. Wash your hands. If not for yourself, then for somebody you love. Until next time, I'm Mark Gray. That's Mark with a K, Gray with an A. And I'll see you right back here inside the gray area.